Hello there, everyone. My name is Crazy Caleb, and welcome to Forgetle. This is the way the module looks. We are going to be taking a look at this. And for those of you who have been on the internet within the past year, you're going to be familiar with this concept. But for those of you who haven't and have been living under a rock, this is based off of a little game called Wordle. And for Wordle, what you essentially are trying to do is you're trying to guess a word with a series of 6 different guesses. I believe it is a 5-letter word, but essentially that's what you're going to be doing here. And the idea is through each individual guess, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be you're going to be trying to figure out what letters are in the same positions as each of these, or which ones are in the word, but in a different position, or just in the word at all. So that's going to be the way that this module works. But but in this module, it is a boss module, and it works a little bit differently compared to how you would do with the guessing of word. So let's get right into this. So the first things first that we want to do is we want to note down our word that we have here, which is spent. Okay. And now we're going to get into the reading of the actual module, because now what's going to happen here is now we're going to get stages that are going to generate for us, and we're going to see what we get here. So after a not-ignored module is disarmed, the stage number will increase, and then from onwards, the main display will show colors as opposed to a word. Take note of the sequence of colors after every solve. This first word is important, and we must note this down because this is going to help us throughout the rest of the stages. So, and to accommodate diffusers with color blindness, the module was kind enough to display the letters of the first letters of each of the colors, which in this case will be yellow, green, and the black/gray, which in this case will be Bravo for the time. So I'm going to note this down as a K just because of the fact that I'm using K for black. Personal preference, in my opinion. But that's just kind of what I'm going to do. So just letting you know as a mention in the tutorial before we get into it. So let's continue on and let's see what we have here. So let's just start solving modules. And what we're going to get is we're going to get a sequence of 5 different colors, and we're going to explain all those rules later on down the line. So as you can see now, stage is increased, and we get a series of 5 different colors. So black, black, yellow, black, green. Solve another module. Yellow, black, green, black, black. Green, yellow, black. Black, yellow, yellow, green, blue, green, black. And black, black, yellow, green, black. Black, green, black, yellow, yellow. And now we enter into submission phase. It will go back down to the first stage. In this case, we'll start as 1, and every time you input something, it will be increasing, specifically correctly, it will be increasing the stage count. So that's the way that that works. And now, let's get into the rules and how we have to do this. So after all non-ignored modules have been solved until they will go blank, it just did that, prompting for a list of words that, when chained together, continuously follow the rules listed below. So let's zoom in on this. If a cell is green, then the letter in the same position from the previous stage is in the same position in the current stage. So with this knowledge, what we know here is that with our first word spent, which in this case represents the previous stage, it's the first stage, so stage 0, we know for a fact that tango is going to be in the 5th position, and that's going to be part of our word that we have to use. And essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a sequence of words that, when all used together, they follow each of these rules that we were given. So that's what makes it a little bit different compared to Wordle, where you're trying to guess a word. You're trying to use a word based off of the clues given to you from the previous word that's actually used. So our previous word is spent, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a new word. And tango, for this stage, it showed green in the 5th position. We're going to use the position in the, we're going to use the 5th position. We're going to use that letter in our next word. We're going to use that exact same letter. Now for yellow, on the other hand, if the cell is yellow, then the letter in the same position from the previous stage is not in the same position, but is present in the current stage. So in this case, we have a yellow displayed as well in the 3rd position. Yellow is referring to echo from the previous stage, but we know for a fact that the echo is not going to be in the 3rd position. That's what this gives us. So, and one important thing to note down is yellow cells are evaluated from left to right. Only the first occurrence of the letter in a given position will be marked, and if there is only one occurrence of a letter in a current stage, and for example, if it says if datum, would not be a valid word if the previous stage's color was strut and the colors were currently for the current stage were black, 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 green, yellow. So what this is referring to is this does not work because of the fact that there is 2 tangos, And what it would be is if Tango was, if this black here was instead a yellow and this was the black here, that would be perfectly fine for data. But because of this, what happens here is that this is not valid because of the fact that there are two tangos. The first one should be yellow for datum to be used. However, it is not in this case, and that simply just will not work. Hope that makes sense. If Tango were to be available to be used in the next stage, it would have to be this one being yellow, not the 5th position. That's the way that works. So, very straightforward, just a very important thing to note down. And finally, if the cell is black or gray and the letter in the same position from the previous stage is not present on the current stage. So what this essentially means is, based off of what we have here, the blacks in the 1st, 2nd, and 4th position, in this case, are referencing Sierra, Papa, and November. Those are not going to be present in our word in this stage. That's the way that it works. So we know for a fact we're going to be using echo somewhere. We know we're using Tango in the 5th position. We're using echo not in the 3rd position, so it could be 2nd or 4th or 1st maybe. And we know for a fact that we're not using Sierra, Papa, or November anywhere in the sequence. So now, let's take a look at our word bank, because we have a lot of words to work with, but not as many as you think there are. There's actually quite surprisingly a lot less, because there is a giant word list that makes me think of a big word list is Tether, because, oh my god, this has a lot. And as you can see, it is significantly more than that. So, but thankfully this is actually pretty straightforward and easy to use. Let's take a look and let's see what we have here. So all words must be found in the word bank beginning on the next page. So that's what we're going to be using here. So let's start solving this module, and we're going to get into the submission rules a little bit later on. Those are pretty straightforward though. So we know for a fact that we need to use Tango in the 5th position, and we need to use Echo somewhere that's not in the 3rd. So let's find a sequence that would work for us. And this should be pretty straightforward. So find Tango. We can Control F it. Alert doesn't work. Let's see what we can do here. Asset does not work because of the fact that it uses Sierra. Sierra is not present in our word. So, let's take a look. Beast doesn't work. Now beset doesn't work. Nope. And this is kind of the hard thing about this module. I will be honest with you. This module is a little bit tricky to do, but I believe I found a word here. So we can use cadet because of the fact that Charlie, Alpha, and Delta are nowhere in the previous word that we can't use. Echo is in a different position for instead of the 3rd position. So and Tango is in the 5th position. So cadet is a possible word here, and that actually is I think a good start for us. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next stage. And what we're going to do is we're going to use cadet as our previous word and follow these rules. So we know for a fact that Delta has to be in the middle position, and we know for a fact that we're using Charlie at some point, but it's not going to be in the 1st position. And we know for a fact that we're not using Alpha, Echo, or Tango, which is a bit unfortunate because that's a lot of vowels. But we should be fine, probably. So let's find Delta in the center. That should be hopefully not too hard to find. Can't use Charlie, so let's skip the Charlie words. And let's see what we can find. Let's take a look. So, Fudge doesn't work. We need Charlie somewhere. Index doesn't work. We need Charlie somewhere. Charlie's gonna be a bit hard to find. And this is probably the hardest part about this module, is that sometimes you might have to go back and change the stage, just because of the fact that the letter that you're given really doesn't work with much. Because as far as I can see, I'm not having any luck with finding a Charlie in a word with Delta in the middle. So that's going to be a bit weird. Hopefully I can find something. That would be nice, but I doubt it. Yeah, I have my doubts. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and I'm going to make a different word with this because cadet is not going to work out with this. So it's kind of a good idea to maybe plan ahead a little bit too with the words that you want to choose. And one last rule I forgot to actually cover real quick is repeating letters can only be will only be used if it will only be used if colored yellow or green, and if there's more than one of the same letter from the previous stage, and fall under those respective rules. So what essentially would happen here is if you had, for example, say the word reads as your previous stage, and this next stage was, for example, black, green, black, black, yellow, for example. What this essentially does is we cannot use a duplicate echo in the next word, basically because of the fact that the black here is just not going to work with this. So if this was yellow, for example, which is the correct format that we need to use for the yellow rules here, so echo would only be used once, and black, and the second echo is marked black because that there is only one echo that we would actually use. So be very careful with that. And that's one of the biggest rules I want to finish. And finally, once a given word has been correctly submitted for a given stage, it cannot be used again unless the stage 1 number reset, and unless the stage number resets to 1, in which case that's just simply re-inputting the module. So just be very careful with that. You cannot use the same word over again in the sequence. Just be very, just mark that down. So let's have a look. I'm going to actually backtrack on cadet real quick because of the fact that that's a bit of an unfortunate word for us to use. It shouldn't be too hard to find tango in the last position and echo in somewhere else, so let's just look for tango again real quick. Because of the fact that Charlie just doesn't work well with us. So let's get out of Charlie. Let's find something that's a little bit more up to speed, like heart. Heart would be perfect here. Heart is a really good word that we can use here. So we can definitely use heart as our word here. So that would be perfect. Uses tango, uses echo, not in the third position, so we're good to go. So now, what we need to do is we need to use alpha for our third letter, and we need to use hotel somewhere. And this is a little bit more workable, I will be honest with you. So probably what we can end up doing, we need to make sure that we also note down that we can't use Romeo, Tango, or Echo, which is also a bit unfortunate, but I'd say it's a little bit more workable than using Charlie as a letter. Because Charlie's a bit of an uncommon one. It's not the most uncommon, but it's a little bit weird to work with sometimes, so just keep that in mind. Let's find something that works with us, and hopefully it shouldn't be too hard to find. Brash doesn't work because we can't use Romeo, which is close, but it's a little bit more workable. Chart doesn't work. Chaos would work, yes. So if we take a look here, chaos, Charlie is used, hotel is used in a better position. So in this case, the yellow is not, the hotel is not used in the first position, so that works. And we don't use Charlie, Oscar, or Sierra in our previous word, so therefore chaos is acceptable. It works perfectly fine. So now, let's take a look at our next one. So we're going to be using chaos for this stage, and we're going to be having Charlie in our first position, guaranteed because of the green, and we're going to be using Oscar and hotel somewhere not in these positions, in their positions. So let's take a look and let's see what we can do. Nice thing is about Charlie is that it does limit us to only the Charlie words. So hopefully we can find something that's a little bit simple to use. But if we don't, obviously things are subject to change. So maybe a Charlie Oscar somewhere. It sucks because maybe is there cloth? Yeah, there we go. That would work perfectly fine. Cloth. Cloth would be perfect because the hotel is in the 5th position, the Oscar's in the 3rd position, and we don't use the Tango in the last stage. Perfect. We don't care about it. Cloth is our word, and let's continue on to the next stage. So next up, we're going to be using Tango in the 4th position, and we're going to be using Lima and Oscar somewhere along the lines, while avoiding Charlie and Hotel. This is pretty good. This one is actually pretty good. We'll look at Tango. Tango in the 4th position probably would be a good place to look at Lima, maybe. Lofty would work. That's perfect. Yep, Lofty would work. That works perfectly. Lofty. The L and the O change positions. That's perfectly fine. Tango stays the exact same, and we don't use Foxtrot or Yankee in the previous stage. Okay. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a look at Tango once again in the exact same position, but we need to use Foxtrot somewhere else in the 3rd, if that's not in the 3rd position. So, likely what we can do is we can just go to Foxtrot words and hopefully find something really, really simple there. And we can't use Oscar or Lima or Yankee. Shouldn't we do that? Fritz would work. Yep, that's a good one. Uses Foxtrot in the first position, no Romeo, no India or Zulu. Fritz would work perfectly fine. Now we have Romeo in the second position, and we need to use Tango and Zulu somewhere. This could be a bit interesting. And it needs to be, and the Tango and Zulu need to not be in the last position and the fourth position based off of their preferences. So this is going to be a bit weird. Okay. Let's see what we can do. Hope and pray to God that we can actually find a solution here. Froze would be nice, but like there's no Tango. Be a Tango word. Doubt it. Topaz close, but no cigar. Yeah, it's likely gonna be us having to use a different word because Z and R doesn't happen. So yeah, so Fritz doesn't work. Let's go back up to it because I believe we can find something there that would work for us. So let's back it up. And sometimes this is necessary because of the fact that like it leads to some weird words like these. So let's get rid of Fritz. We're going to still use Foxtrot somewhere. I believe we can still use it as the first letter, but we need to find a little bit of a more workable word for this. So let's have a look. Froth wouldn't work. Find Tango. Let's just look at those. Make my life a little bit easier to know what I'm looking for. Filth wouldn't work because of the Lima from previous stage. Flute, no, there's a Lima. Forte uses Oscar, doesn't work. Or doesn't work because he needs to be in the fourth position. Ooh, Faith would work. That's a little bit more workable. Yeah, Faith would be a good one. Okay, and now this is much, much easier to work with for sure. So Alpha in the second position and then Tango Hotel somewhere else along the lines. That is much better. Is there a word hatch? There is hatch. And now, here's the case where it actually gets a bit interesting. So hatch, we know for a fact that we can't use this word because of the fact that hotel is in the fifth position in our previous word, and it's marked in yellow. Now, in the case of it was being marked, say, in the fourth position, this would be acceptable because of the fact that there is no rule preventing you from using double words. Keep that in mind. But we can probably use something else. Hater is perfectly fine. Yeah, hater works amazingly. So hotel is used in a different position. Tango is used in a different position. There is no Echo and Romeo in the previous stage, and therefore we're good to go. So now what we can do is we can now type all of these in, and let's get into this. So one other thing that I need to mention before we actually get into the input here. So words may either be typed out on the diffuser's keyboard. So in this case, I can type freely here. So we can type roll the mayo or something like that. Yeah. Stuff like that, you can use your keyboard. You don't have to actually use any of these buttons here, although that is just cool module design that it gives you that. What we need to do here is do not attempt to interact with any part of this module before all other modules have been disarmed. So be very careful with when you're typing. Otherwise, the module will strike. Now, some of these rules are a bit particular. If the submitted word for the given stage is not a word in the table, the cells will turn red, but the module itself actually won't strike, which is quite nice. It's very good. So if you happen to typo it somewhere along the lines, and it's not a word in the table, you're perfectly fine and you're not going to strike. So if I say, let me just make sure that poppy isn't a word. It shouldn't be. No, it is a word. We'll just use pops for example. Let's just say I typed pops for example. It turns red, but it didn't give me a strike, and we're good to go. However, if you happen to type a word that does exist in the word table but doesn't follow the rules, that's when it will give you a strike. So just be very, very careful about that. And now, if the submitted word was valid and if the submitted word in the given stage leads to an unsolvable state, the display will turn red and go blank, and the stage number will be reset to 1, but the module will not strike. So where did I use Fritz, for example? Where was that one? I believe it was actually just the first stage. Or no, it was somewhere along the lines. But either way, I'm going to just simply ignore this rule. It was here. I think it was when I was trying to use Fritz somewhere. Yeah, it was faith. So let's type in our sequence. So let's do heart. Let's do chaos. Let's do cloth. Let's do lofty. And I believe if I type in Fritz here, which is a valid word and does follow the solution, it should give me an invalid sequence. It does. And as you can see, it did not give me a strike, but it sent me back to stage 1, letting you know that you typed something in, that you did something wrong, and the next stage is simply impossible at that point. So it is quite generous that it does not give you a strike, but obviously what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have all this stuff planned out for that case in order for it to work. So heart, chaos, cloth, lofty, faith, and hater. And just like that is a solved module. Let's go over one more example. This module itself is pretty straightforward in how to do it. It's just you definitely need to be very, very careful, and there needs to be a lot of planning going into this. Because it definitely can get you, and having to go back in stages and have to recalculate is a bit of a pain in the ass, I'll be honest with you. So just be careful with how you plan things. As far as I'm aware, there's no really good technique that I'm aware of. What I like to do is for yellow ones that aren't in the first position, I like to look in that. I like to put them in the first position and just assume that they're going to be in the first position there. It's just easier to assume that. But obviously it's still a lot of stuff up in the air. So just be very careful with that. So let's get into one more example here and then we'll be calling it a day. Yeah, the only case where the module will strike is if you interact with it before it's ready for submission, or you input a valid word that does not hold. The only case. Alright, so our starting word is speak, and let's see what our colors are. So here, so we've got black, green, yellow, black, 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 green, yellow, yellow, green, black, 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 yellow, black, green, yellow. And now, obviously, I'm not sure whether exactly it is a good idea to calculate them on the fly or do it all at the end. It ultimately is your preference, but just be aware that this module takes a while in general. So just keep that in mind that you are going to be experiencing some kind of trouble at some point with this mod. There was a lot of kind of testing around with it. So just keep that in mind and just be very careful that this module itself is not something that should be messed with. You definitely need to either keep track of it or be very quick when you're doing it at the end. So just keep that in mind. So next up we have yellow, black, black, yellow, green. And finally for our last stage we have a black, black, yellow, black, green. Now let's get into the solving phase and let's have a look and see what we can do. So our word is speak. We know for a fact that our second position is going to have a papa, and we know we're going to have an echo, but not in the third position. So let's take a look and let's see what we can do. So papa in the second position is going to be a bit interesting. We can use apple. Apple would work perfectly fine. No, we cannot. That's a lie. Apple cannot be used because we cannot have alpha in our position. So let's move on. All right, so papa in the second position. Let's take a look. It's probably not going to be in Charlie. It's probably not going to be in Delta. Epoxy. That would work. It's a bit of a weird word, though. And I'm a bit concerned because of the fact that if we take a look at the next stage, it's going to be using green for the X-ray position, and Yankee needs to be used in a different position instead of the fifth, excuse me. So I'm going to probably avoid that word just for the sake of it's not good to work with for the next stage. So let's move on. Epoch would work a bit better. Yeah, I'm going to use Epoch for the sake of just getting this tutorial going. So Epoch would work. It uses echo in a different position. It doesn't use any of these other letters. It is used as Sierra, Alpha, or Kilo, and we're good to go. So now, for this stage, we know for a fact that Charlie is going to be in the fourth position, and we know for a fact that we're using hotel somewhere else. So let's take a look. Let's take a look and let's see what we can do. Charlie in the fourth position. There should not be too many of these, hopefully. And the problem with this is that a lot of these are going to have hotels at the end, and that's going to be a bit weird to work with. And it's a bit concerning, I will admit. So I don't know how we're going to find some way to pull this off, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I hope and pray. Highlight that. Um, hence is not going to work because we can't use echoes. Oh, good lord. Yeah, okay. This is probably not the word to use then because of the fact that almost every fourth letter word with a Charlie in it ends with a hotel. Yeah, I think this was a mistake. Um, maybe a tango word by any chance? Go hotel maybe? Thick. Let's check and see if that worked. I think that actually works perfectly fine. Tango hotel. We use hotel in a different position. No India. No kilo. Yeah, thick would work. That works perfectly. Okay, on to the next stage. And that hopefully should give us some pretty decent letters to work with. And indeed it does. So we know for a fact that we're using hotel in the second position. We're not using India, Charlie, or Kilo, and we're using tango somewhere else. So hotel in the second position. That leaves a lot of opportunities open for us. We can maybe even take a look at Sierra Hotel. Sierra Hotel. Um, a lot. Short would work. Short would work perfectly fine. That would be great. Let's do short. There's no problems there. Tango's used in a different position. That's good to go. And let's see what we're working with the next stage. So Romeo in the fourth position, and Tango in a different position. That's not the fifth. Oh, and Hotel is used somewhere else as well. Is there a Romeo Hotel possibility? Not many, from what it looks like. Yeah, so I'm gonna skip that. Um, Purdy maybe? No. This is gonna be a bit of an interesting one. Let's take a look at hotel words. Let's see what they start with. Let's see if we can find anything. Look for Romeo in the fourth position for hotel words. Let's see if we can find anything there. It's probably a bit better to work with, in my opinion, because mostly what it's going to be looking at is tango words in the first position, but we can't use hotel. So, let's take a look. So, fourth position. Likely gonna have to use a different word here, just because of the fact that it's been unfortunate of the positions that we got. Um, I mean, heck, even we can even test it and just see if it's possible. So, um, have a look. So, epoch, thick, short. Yeah, it creates an impossible solution, so we can't use short here. Okay, that's actually quite a nice way to use that too. It's like a good way to test if you don't know if you have a solution here, is you can just test and see if it works. That's quite actually a good, useful tool. I'd actually recommend using that. So let's look at thick again. Let's take a look and let's see what we can form here. So we know we're using hotel in the second position. Um, let's go back to Sierra stuff. Sierra Hotel. I think that those can be useful, just not short. What about shout? Shout would be a bit interesting. Shout, shout, let it all out. Um, sorry, I couldn't resist myself. Shout works with the words from before. Let's take a look at where uniform is instead our fourth letter this time. We still have to use hotel and tango in some way, shape, or form. But at least this one I think is a little bit more workable with. So let's see what we can do. Maybe hotel words. Um, hmm. Hummus is so close to working, but it doesn't have a tango in it. Um, Tango words with a uniform. Chorus doesn't work. Yeah, this is probably another case where it's not going to work. So let's not try SH. Let's maybe like try uh maybe a TH for all we know. No, it can't be TH because we can't use that. Maybe CH something. I don't know. We can't use C though, so skip that. I feel like this one should be a little bit easier than I think it is. Um, hmm. This one's a bit hard to find. Hmm. I'm a bit stuck here. What about shunt? Epoch? Thick shunt. Wait. Did that give me a strike at all? It doesn't. It still creates an impossible solution. Um, what about shoot? We can do that. Maybe epoch. Thick. Another impossible solution. I'm gonna imagine that at this point it's not any of these because of the fact that that's a bit unfortunate. What about sheet? Maybe I'm just trying to test things here. Epoch. Thick sheet. But that gives me a solution, so we can use sheet with something else here. Okay, so sheet is definitely a possibility. Okay, so sheet works here. So we know for a fact that now we have an echo. So there is a solution here, but we need to figure out what exactly it is. Let's maybe take a look at Tango, see if we can find any echoes in the 4th position with a hotel in it. That's not in the 2nd position. This is an interesting one, but I don't think it's the worst case. I thought through for a second was the winner. Is there such a thing as Echo Hotel as an ending, first off? Okay, there isn't. So it's likely going to be happening. Maybe it's like a hotel echo or something like that, or maybe it's like Hotel India Tango Echo. No, not quite. I don't think it begins with hotel. Something tells me it doesn't. Well, there we go. That certainly is one way of doing things. It begins with the hotel, and it is hotel. Well, there we go. That certainly is one way of doing it. Okay, so hotel works. Hopefully, this should lead us to victory. So Lima, we know we're using echo and hotel somewhere else along the lines. We don't know exactly where yet. So perhaps it could be just another tango case, but we can't use tango actually at all, or Oscar for that matter of fact. So let's have a look and let's think about what else we can do. First off, it ends with Lima. Let's just get that out of the way. Let's get that addressed, and hopefully we can figure things out from there. Is there maybe like a hell somewhere? Not that. Ends with heal. It doesn't end with heal. Okay, so maybe EL somewhere along the lines? Gavel, no. Hazel. No, it wouldn't work quite yet. No. It's not a hotel word. It's not beginning with hotel anyways. Now, one interesting thing is that it actually doesn't have any problems with duplicate letters, so we could totally use shell here. Let's use shelf for the sake of this. No, we can't use shelf. Now, one important thing is that when it gives you the clue, because I'm looking at the next stage right now, when it gives you the clue, it only refers to the yellow cells. So in this case, if I were to say shell, if I were to do shell here, the 5th position works. There's no Sierra. The hotel is in a different position. The echo is in a different position. There's no tango. In this case, what we have here is we have Lima not being in the 4th position, and we know for a fact that Lima is in the 5th. Yellow cells, if there happens to be a tango in the next word, it needs to be the first in the sequence, not the last. In this case with green, though, if it's in the exact same position, then it will be marked in green. That's very important to note down. So let's take a look. We need to figure out where echo can be used, but we still are going to be using Lima in the last sequence. Probably what we can just do is use cable or something like that. Not cable. Ends in EL, I think would work perfectly fine. You can definitely do a lot with that. Angel would work. Work perfectly. Yeah, there we go. And just like that, we have our sequence created, Angel. So now we're on sequence 4, so we used sheet last stage, so now we're going to use hotel. That works perfectly fine. We can use shell, and we can use angel, and just like that is a solved module. Some of them are pretty easy to find, but obviously, as you can see, I was having a little bit of trouble figuring this out because it was giving me impossible solutions. So you can definitely use the module itself to make sure that it is an impossible solution, just to save yourself a lot of time from looking. And I would advise using that. It's a little bit of a neat trick, but obviously on bigger bombs, that can be a bit tricky. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to stay crazy, stay cool, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.